Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you, Alison, for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, you're chairman of the investment banking division at Goldman Sachs. What that means is when some of the biggest business leaders, the private equity chiefs, want a read on the state of the world, they pick up the phone and call you. So what have you been telling them?
Well, we're certainly in interesting times. I would say of late, a few things we're telling them are, number one, we're still in volatile times with respect to the pandemic. And we all need to be flexible and stay flexible. And as illustrated this week and last week in Europe with the second wave, I mean, the safety of our people, of our clients, of our communities is our number one priority. So we, in fact, as a result of the second wave last week, on November 1st, we reduced our GDP estimates, both for the fourth quarter and for 21. And in Europe, we're forecasting down 7.2% for the year of 2020, but up 5.3% in 21. And globally, we're forecasting down 4.1% GDP for this year, but up 6% in 21. So what we are telling them is the economy is going to recover. And globally, after a pandemic-induced contraction of what I mentioned, almost over 4.1% globally, we do expect above consensus growth in 21, which candidly is a much faster recovery than past recessions. So the key is to be nimble. And, we've seen that. We've proven that we can all work from home effectively and conduct business. And one example I just want to give you is the M&A business, which is a big business for us here at Goldman Sachs. We did over 100 deals post-COVID. And interestingly, 2/3 of them were done fully virtually.
So clearly sounds like a lot of the ESG changes are coming towards us faster than we expected. But what about the broader trends that you're seeing in the corporate industry? What is going to change quickly and in a more rapid fashion in the coming years?
Well, I've been thinking about what this new normal means for all of us. And actually, when I was sheltering in place with my family earlier this year, I was thinking about what the best minds in private equity were thinking about the new investment, opportunities ahead of them. So I actually recently launched a series of interviews with some of those world's greatest investors and leaders in private equity to get their perspective on their investment strategies. And they are definitely looking at the world more thematically, especially around how the pandemic has affected people's behaviors. And there are a couple of ways they're looking at trends. So they're looking at interrupted trends versus trends that have been accelerated. And when I say interrupted trends, I mean trends that COVID has negatively impacted but will recover. And those include location-based entertainment. Like, people want to go to Disney World in person again. They want to have that physical experience. Urbanization. Most investors believe that people will return to living in cities, as opposed to trends that were just accelerated as a result of the pandemic. And most of those have been in the virtual world, as opposed to the physical world. So those are things like e-commerce. We've seen a surge in e-commerce globally since the pandemic started. We at Goldman changed our expectations of growth in e-commerce from 17% over the next 3 years to over 24% annually. And nearly a third of online shoppers are over 55 years old, of the new online shoppers. And the last trend I'm seeing a lot of focus on is the adoption of telehealth, because people need to take care of their health, but they feel safer doing it in a remote fashion. Now, you asked me about the social part, of ESG, the S. And I want to spend 1 minute on that. Because that is an area that is without a doubt accelerating in 2020. And, Eurazeo, when they made their new announcement, they also committed to ensuring that 40% of their portfolio companies' boards and of the management team of those portfolio companies had underrepresented gender on them by 2030. And KKR has added at least 2 diverse directors to the board of every company that it controls in the U.S. They've been a leader in this, and they're extending that focus globally into Europe and Asia. And just last month, Blackstone, I'm sure you saw, announced a pledge that I think 1/3 of their board seats at newly acquired U.S. and European companies will be filled by diverse candidates within a year of them controlling the company. So that's something that's been accelerated. And, we're trying to play our role. I think, you might have seen that in the beginning of the year. I wanted to mention that our CEO, David Solomon, announced a new policy that Goldman is not going to take companies public in the U.S. and Europe unless those companies have at least one diverse board director. And in 2021, that number is going to 2 diverse board members. We were hoping that some of our peer bank organizations would follow suit because there's strength in numbers. None of them have to date, but since the policy has gone into effect, we've actually taken 54 companies public. And, I've really been encouraged by the number of clients who have come to us and requested our help with some of this board talent. So there's been a lot of progress. There's a lot more to do on this front, but a huge amount of progress in 2020.
Well, it's been a crazy year. Clearly sounds like when we think about the post-COVID world, we're heading into a world that could look very different. But thank you for helping us make sense of all of it. And thank you again for joining us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.